It has come to my attention that an unfortunate number of people are denying themselves one of life's greatest pleasures, that of reading a good book. Now, the reasons for this tragedy are probably as numerous as the stars themselves. There is one reason, however, that I can attempt to remedy, that reason being the lack of suitable reading material. Now, this is how this little segment is going to work. Once a month, I will be recommending a book or book series and giving an overview, a few of the positives, a few of the negatives, and leaving it up to you, my lovely power plants, to decide whether you want to pick up the book or wait until next month's recommendation. Now, for my first, I'm going to go with the Animorphs saga. Now, the Animorphs saga is one that I grew up with, and it has a near place to my heart. For those of you who have never heard of the Animorphs before, allow me to give you a quick synopsis. 5 teenagers are walking home when they come across a downed alien fighter. They meet the pilot of the fighter who is dying, and he tells them of a alien invasion that is going on right there in their hometown. And in a last act of desperation, he gives them the power to fight, the power to touch any living creature and become it, the power to morph. Soon thereafter, they meet the younger brother of the pilot, and together they become known as the Animorphs. Now, there are, as I said, positives and negatives to every series. Allow me to go over the positives of this one. To begin with, each book individually is only about 150 pages, but the series as a whole is 54 books with companion pieces, which means that while you can sit down and read one of the books in an afternoon, you can take a break, and there'll still be plenty of story waiting for you when you return to it. Now, the next positive is that the language of the books, the way the books are written, is very appealing to me personally. It doesn't talk down to you, but nor does it overcomplicate things in order to sound more adult. It's very relaxing, I suppose. Which brings up my next point. The characters themselves, they feel like teens. Teens that fight, that make dumb choices, but they mean well, and they're in way over their heads. Now, this series is written in the first-person perspective, which means it's given from the character's own point of view. And I know that might turn some people off, but I personally really liked it, and it influenced my own writing style. Now, while I am praising the Animorphs, there are a few undeniable flaws. Now, in the interest of letting people remain spoiler-free if they so wish, I will notify you when I am about to talk about spoilers, which will come later on in this section of the review. But for now, I will talk about the negative issues that are not spoilers. First and foremost in my mind is that the running gags that permeate the books. Personally, if you read the books one after the other in quick succession like I tend to do, these jokes and gags can quickly get tiresome. Even when they're lampshaded in the books, it feels somewhat trite. Also, another issue I have with it is the primary antagonist. He's built up like a complete monster. Like, if you meet this guy, you either run or you're dead. And to the book's credit, he is depicted like this. However, his actions and demeanor undermine this. He is no doubt an absolute monster. He kills indiscriminately, but he's also very stupid. He makes questionable decisions all the time. He's petty. And your mileage with this villain will definitely vary from person to person. I'm not his biggest fan. Now, I'm about to be talking about things that tie into the plot of the book. So, this is your spoiler warning. If you wish to remain spoiler free, I hope that means you have decided to read up on these books, and you may go with my blessing. But for everyone else who are still on the fence or just want to know my thoughts in general, continue onwards. Now, the first major negative comes at about book 6, with the introduction of a character known as the Animorphs. The Animorphs, and I might be saying this wrong, but that's how I say it, is a godlike being similar to Q from the Star Trek franchise. Now, godlike beings in fiction, my opinion is that if they are part of a group or faction, then that's preferable, because if they are part of a group, then even if they don't regularly get involved in the hero's plights, you can presume there's a reason for it, even if we may not know that reason. If a whole community is agreeing to stay out of something, then I imagine there's a reason for it, right? But the Animorphs, he works solo. And while we do find out later on in the series that he has his reasons for not intervening, at the beginning, it just seems like he's a very powerful person, a being who just doesn't want to get involved out of his own rules and maybe sense of laziness. It weakens both the Animorphs and the plot in general. Fortunately, later on, there is a companion piece, which is titled The Animorphs Chronicles, and it definitely helps flesh out his character in hindsight, although reading through the books in chronological order, you wouldn't know that, so that's why I'm listing this as one of the negatives. Now, the other negative, the big one, the one that I honestly will maybe never be able to forgive, the ending. Now, in the ending, the younger brother of the pilot has been captured. So 3 of the other Animorphs go and they steal a spaceship to mount a rescue effort. They find the younger brother, but he's been possessed. We don't know by what methods, by who. We don't know if it's biological, if it's mechanical, if it's another entity like the Animorphs. We know nothing. And the final few words of the book are as follows. Full emergency power to the engines, Jake said. Ram the blade ship. And Jake's the leader, by the way. And that's where it ends. Do they survive? Do they die? Do they ever rescue the younger brother? We don't find out. It just ends on a cliffhanger. Now, this on its own is plenty infuriating. But then the author decided to put in a postscript. The author acknowledges it's rotten of her to leave the series on a cliffhanger. However, and I quote, "But I figured the Animorphs should go out the same way they came in, fighting." The first chapter of the Animorphs was them walking home after blowing all their allowance at the mall. Truly a life or death fight. This one or the other are infuriating. Together, when I first finished this series, I was frothing at the mouth with rage. I felt betrayed. But as the years have passed, my feelings have cooled somewhat, and while I still think this is easily one of the top 10 worst endings to any medium I have ever seen, even worse than the fabled Mass Effect 3 ending, does that turn me off of this book series completely? No. Despite all its flaws, I still love this book series, and I still read it over and over to this day. Does that mean that you should? Well, I leave that in your hands, my lovely power plants. I hope that I have helped you today to pick up a new book. Tell me in the comments if I have, or if I need to work on my salesmanship. Until next time, ladies, gentlemen, geeks, gamers, and nerds. Thank you. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next month.